Sri Ramana.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Om Namo
Bhagavate Sri Ramana.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Om
Bhagavate Sri Ramana.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Om Namo
Bhagavate Sri Ramana.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Om
Bhagavate Sri Ramana.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramana. Om Namo
Bhagavate Sri Ramana.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We will begin this week's Ramana Puranam with an invocatory verse from Tirumandiram written by Tirumular. ஐந்து கரத்தனை யானை முகத்தனை ஏந்தி இளம்பிறை போலுமேற்றனை நந்தி மகந்தனை ஞான கொழுந்தினை புந்தியில் வைத்தடி போற்றுகின்றேனே. This is praying to Lord Ganesha to bestow us the grace and the wisdom required to understand the task at hand, which is to understand Ramana Puranam as composed by Bhagavan and Sri Muruganar. We will review quickly where we left off last week and we'll begin new lines today. Last week we started at line number 283. முப்புடியின் மேவு முயிர் மோக விலாசமர செப்படியில் வித்தையாய் தீர்க்கும் செழும் சுடரே நீதியாய் ஏதிலர நீங்கவே ஆன்ம பரம் ஜோதியாய் எஞ்சித் துலங்கும் சுரூபமே மோனமாம் தன் சுரூப மூதறிவு தேரலன்றி ஊனமனக் கற்பனை சுட்டு ஓர ஒண்ணாக் கேவலமே ஆடுமனக் கண்ணாடியால் அசைந்து விம்பிக்கும் மூடு மயக்கு ஆறுயிரை மோக விகாரமெலாம் நன்னயமுற்று ஓங்கு அச்சல ஞானான்ம மெய்ப்பொருளாம் தன் இயலில் போல தடுமாற்றும் அம்மாயை தன்னருள் பெற்றார் அறிவை சற்றும் சலிப்பியாது அன்னதை முற்றும் தன் அதீனமாப் பெற்றோனே சூதர் பொறிக்கு அணுவும் தோன்றாத சூனியமே போதர் விழிக்கெங்கும் புலப்படுவும் பூரணமே அன்பரோடு அல்லார்க்கு அணியானே சேயானே என் பரமோ நின் சீர் இயல்பு உணர்ந்து பேசிடுதல் வீரிட்டு எழுந்த நாள் வேதாகமங்களும் வீறு ஆறிட்டு அமைதி அடையின் அடி நாயேனும் சீரும் சிறப்பும் செயலும் குணநலமும் பேரும் பெருமிதமும் பேசல் பெருநகையே பாதலத்தோர் பூதலத்தோர் மீதலத்தோர் பாராட்டிக் காதலித்தோர்க்கெல்லாம் கனிந்தருளும் கற்பகமே தொக்கம் சிறுமணித்த தொண்டரவா கொண்டனரேல் மிக்கு அமரர் வைத்து அவைக்கண் வீற்றிருக்கச் செய்வோனே எவ்வத்தனை தாம் இயலும் பிறப்புலவோ அவ்வத்தனையும் அடைந்து அளித்தேன் எம்பெருமான் இந்திரன் தொட்டு அவ் இறைவர் உயர்பதத்தும் புந்தி சென்று எய்த்து புலம்பற்கு உருப்படேன். We left at line number 310 last week. We now go into lines 311 onwards. So what follows for another 50 lines is wonderful poetry, giving us a glimpse of the supreme grace that Bhagavan bestows for anybody who comes into his field or his sannidhi. So that is the purpose of the next 50 or so lines. Let's start with line number 311, these 10 lines. Pon maameru அடைந்த பறை காக்கையும் அச்செம்பொன் மயமா திறம்போல சிற்சுரூப சந்நிதிவாய் ஏய்ந்த அதிசாமானிய உயிரும் உன்னதமாம் அச்சொரூபம் உற்றொளிரும் மாண்பாலே ஊன்மயன் நான் ஓராது உடையாய் உன் மெய்ஞான வான்மயமான மோனம் வழுங்குதி மெய்யுள் உரைக்க வாய்மொழியே போல மாயா மனமூல தாய்மொழியாம் ஓர்மொழியே தக்க மொழியாக பரமார்த்தம் சொல்வார் பரம்பரைக்கே ஆதி குருமூர்த்தமாக குலாமோன கோமளமே. These words appear very hard, but the meaning of these lines are as sweet as nectar. We will quickly review these lines, and they are fairly straightforward. அம்பொன் மாமேரு அடைந்த பறை காக்கையும் செம்பொன் மயமா திறம்போல சிற்சுரூப. So here, Mount Meru, which is one of the mountains mentioned in ancient Vedas, is often also referred to as Mount Kailash, is meant to be shining like gold. It is a mount that gives wisdom to those who approach its proximity. So the first line says, Ampon maameru adainda parai kakkayum. So imagine a dark black crow flying over to that Mount Meru, which is gold or shining like gold. Even the darkest of those crows will start shining like gold, transformed by its proximity to the peak of Mount Meru. And he says, likewise, those who approach Bhagavan's abode, though they may be the most ordinary jiva, they may start shining with wisdom, with an effulgence that shines from within, purely because of their proximity to Bhagavan. Obviously, we can read countless stories of people who have been to Bhagavan and how they have gotten instant glimpse of the supreme experience of the self by merely sitting next to Bhagavan or Bhagavan just casually looking at them, and oftentimes they just prostrate in front of him. So here, going into these verses, Ampon maameru adainda parai kakkayum achembon mayama tirambola. So like how a dark crow that flies near Mount Meru also shines golden, even the most ordinary Sitsuruba Sannidhivoy Yeinda Adisamaniya Virum. Adisamaniya Virum means the most ordinary jiva. Sannidhivoy Yeinda, when they are in close proximity to his abode in Tiruvannamalai, Unnadamam Achorubam Utrolirum Manbale. The inner effulgence starts shining more palpably for them to realize Manbale, because of his grace, because of his presence. And he goes, Unmayan nan oradu udayai, un meinyana vanmayamana monam valungudi. He says here, even though I have come near you, I have not given up the idea that this body is the self. Yet, you have to grant me your pure wisdom, overlooking my transgressions or overlooking my insufficiency. So this is a prayer that Muruganar offers to Bhagavan, that though he's next to Bhagavan, he has not given up the idea that body is the self, which is the ego. Therefore, he is asking Bhagavan to bestow the grace, overlooking this ignorance. Vanmayamana monam valangudi. The celestial great, the celestial stillness, or the celestial peace that is extolled in Upanishads and Vedas, please grant me that. Then he goes on to say, மெய்யுள் உரைக்க வாய்மொழியே போல் தோன்றி மாயா மனமூல தாய்மொழியாம் ஓர் மொழியே தக்க மொழியாக பரமார்த்தம் சொல்வார் பரம்பரைக்கே ஆதி குருமூர்த்தமாக குலாமோன கோமளமே. He says, having realized what you have given me, மெய்யுள் உரைக்க, I have realized based on my realization, வாய்மொழியே போல் தோன்றி மாயா மனமூல தாய்மொழியாம் ஓர் மொழியே தக்க மொழியாக. I see you speaking, I see you uttering words. Here Muruganar is talking towards Bhagavan. I realize because those words are coming from the truth or from the source directly, though you appear to speak, வாய்மொழியே போல் தோன்றி, though you appear to speak, Maya manamula தாய்மொழியாம் ஓர் மொழியே. What I realize is, though you appear to speak, your speech is nothing but silence, which is the source from which this mind, which is full of Maya, springs forth. In other words, though you utter words, those words mean silence because you direct the attention of the listener to the source also. வாய்மொழியே போல் தோன்றி மாயா மனமூல தாய்மொழியாம். Taimuri is the mother tank. What is the mother tank of Manamulam, or the mind, which is silence? Or மொழியே, that is the only speech. What is the only speech? Silence alone is the speech. தக்க மொழியாக, is the perfect way to express the Supreme Self. And furthermore, he says, பரமார்த்தம் சொல்வார் பரம்பரைக்கே ஆதி குருமூர்த்தமாக குலாமோன கோமளமே. Komalam is youthful or ever youthful. He says, Bhagavan, you are ever youthful. Though you appear ever youthful, பரமார்த்தம் சொல்வார் பரம்பரைக்கே. You are the first guru of all gurus who have given us this wisdom. Paramartham means the wisdom of the self, or the supreme wisdom revealed. Solvar, those who speak. Parambareke, for their lineage. Adi Gurumurtam, you are the first and the primal guru. Who is the first and primal guru? That is Lord Dakshinamurti himself. So he says, Bhagavan, you are Dakshinamurti himself, though Kula Mona Komalami, though you are the earliest or the ancient of all gurus, Dakshinamurti, because you are always in perfect bliss and silence. Kula Monam is Kulavum Monam, which is embracing silence completely. You are ever youthful. So here there are three different sections. Section 1, he gives the analogy of a crow going into Mount Meru automatically starts shining like gold. Likewise, even the ordinary Jiva who approaches Bhagavan's Sannidhi gets lit up internally with the truth and wisdom. That is part 1. Second is, though I have not renounced my I am the body sense, please grant me the supreme wisdom, the celestial stillness and peace that has been extolled in Upanishads. Third, with my inner awareness, I realize though you speak words, those words only indicate the truth for the listener, and therefore that itself is silence, which is a source of all this Maya and mind. And I realize you are the ancient of all gurus, i.e. Dakshinamurti himself, though because of your perfect abidance in bliss and silence, you are ever youthful in form. அம்பொன் மாமேறு அடைந்த பறை காக்கையும் அச்செம்பொன் மயமா திறம்போல சிற்சொரூப சந்நிதிவாய் ஏய்ந்த அதிசாமானிய உயிரும் உன்னதமாம் அச்சொரூபம் உற்றொளிரும் மாண்பாலே ஊன்மயன் நான் ஓராது உடையாய் உன் மெய்ஞான வான்மயமான மோனம் வழங்குதி. He says, O மெய்யுள் உரைக்க வாய்மொழியே போல் தோன்றி மாயா மனமூல தாய்மொழியாம் ஓர் மொழியே தக்க மொழியாக பரமார்த்தம் சொல்வார் பரம்பரைக்கு ஆதி குருமூர்த்தமாக குலாமோன கோமளமே. Even the darkest of crows, when flying near Mount Meru, appears golden, transformed through its proximity to the peak. In the same way, even the most ordinary jiva, when drawing close to your supreme abode, begins to shine with inner golden effulgence through your gaze. Such is the greatness of your presence. Though I have reached your sacred feet, I have not yet given up love for this body-bound life, i.e., I am this body. Overlook my smallness, and in your compassion grant me the highest peace, the eternal celestial stillness. Having realized the inner truth, I've come to this understanding. Though you appear to speak words, they do not merely convey sound. They point directly to the supreme truth within the listener's heart and draw the mind inward to its very source. Thus, your spoken words are none other than the language of silence. You are, in truth, the most ancient of all gurus, Lord Dakshinamurti himself, though ever youthful in form. So this section remarkably resembles to a talk recorded in the talks with Sri Ramana Maharishi, talk number 246. Language is only a medium for communicating one's thoughts to another. It is called in only after thoughts arise. Other thoughts arise after the I thought arises. The I thought is the root of all conversation. When one remains without thinking, one understands another by means of the universal language of silence. Silence is ever speaking. It is a perennial flow of language. It is interrupted by speaking. These words obstruct that mute language. There is electricity flowing in a wire. With resistance to its passage, it glows as a lamp or revolves as a fan. In the wire, it remains as electric energy. Similarly, silence is the eternal flow of language obstructed by words. What one fails to know by conversation extending to several years can be known in a trice in silence or in front of silence. Example, Dakshinamurti and his 4 disciples. That is the highest and the most effective language. So now we understand that what Muruganar wrote here is very much what Bhagavan himself said in this talk. Moving on, lines 321 to 324. வித்தக தொன்னூல் அனைத்தும் விஞ்சை சேர் நின் மோன புத்தகத்துக்கு ஆன்றோர் புகன்ற உரை பாயிரமே ஆதலின் அம்மோனம் அவிழ்களார் மெய்யுணர்ச்சிக்கு ஏதலரே அன்றோ அவ்வேனையலாம் கற்றிடனும். These 2 lines are beautiful, and it's very important when you compose poetry, you don't contradict prior ideas based on what you write next. So in these 4 lines, we see wonderful example of this idea that what has been previously said has been wonderfully woven also in these lines, but also introducing new ideas for us. So the first 2 lines here, வித்தக தொன்னூல் அனைத்தும் விஞ்சை சேர் நின் மோன புத்தகத்துக்கு ஆன்றோர் புகன்ற உரை பாயிரமே. வித்தக தொன்னூல் is ancient books of wisdom, such as Vedas and Upanishads, or in general scriptures. Vinjay Ser Nin Monam. Vinjay Ser is one that helps with education. How does it help education? Nin Mona Puttahathukku. They are nothing but explanatory benediction to your silence. Nin Mona Puttahathukku. Your silence itself is a great book. And all these Vedas and Upanishads and all these ancient scriptures are nothing but commentaries of your silence. And it's not merely commentary. Aanror puhundra urai payirame. It is an explanatory benediction. Why is that important to call it a benediction? Because in lines 299 to 300, I'll pull those lines very quickly here. You would actually see here, என் பரமோ நின் சீர் இயல்பு உணர்ந்து பேசிடுதல் வீரிட்டு எழுந்த நாள் வேதாகமங்களும் வீறு ஆறிட்டு அமைதி அடையின் அடிநாயேனும். So in these lines, it's explained the Vedas and Agamas woke up, very enthusiastically and with great zeal, but they felt silent, unable to communicate the supreme wisdom of peace and the self. So the subsequent lines that come about cannot contradict that. Therefore, it is said, those great scriptures are nothing but benedictory verses. They cannot explain your silences, but they can do benediction on your silence and supreme presence. So you can see how wonderfully these poems are woven such that they don't contradict, but the meaning is carried forward from one point to another point. Moving on. ஆதலின் அம்மோனம் அவிழ்கலார் மெய்யுணர்ச்சிக்கு ஏதலரே அன்றோ அவ்வேனையலாம் கற்றிடினும். ஆதலின், therefore, அம்மோனம், that silence, அவிழ்கலால், when the silence is broken. How is the silence broken? As Bhagavan explained in the prior talk, it is broken when speech comes about. மெய்யுணர்ச்சிக்கு ஏதலரே, they become straying away from the ever-shining pure awareness that is I am I. மெய்யுணர்ச்சி is pure awareness. ஏதலர் means the opposite or enemies. Or they become deviated from the supreme presence of the self within us. Andro, is it not? Avvenayalam katridanum. No matter what else you read, what other recitations you do of scriptures, if silence is broken, how is silence broken? Silence is broken when mind starts moving away from the supreme awareness I am I. When the mind abides in I am I, even words came about, they do not constitute breaking silence. That is what the prior two lines also say in this வாய்மொழியே மோல் போன்றி மாயா மனமூல தாய்மொழியா மோர்மொழியே தக்க மொழியாக, which means even though words are spoken, as long as one abides in the supreme awareness I am I, words do not constitute as speaking or breaking silence. Whereas even though one has closed their mouth, but if the mind is not steady and abiding in the supreme self, that constitute breaking silence and becoming noisy. So that is the explanation here. ஆதலின் அம்மோனம் அவிழ்களால் மெய்யுணர்ச்சிக்கு ஏதலரை அன்றோ அவ் ஏனையெல்லாம் கற்றிடனும். No matter which other scriptures are read, if silence of supremely abiding in the self as I am I is not achieved, then it does not matter. Mind is moving. No matter what scriptures are read or recited, they would not come back until such time the wisdom is gained. வித்தகத் துன்னூல் அனைத்தும் விஞ்சை சேர் நின் மோன புத்தகத்துக்கு ஆன்றோர் புகன்ற உரை ஆயிரமே ஆதலின் அம்மோனம் அவிழ்கலார் மெய்யுணர்ச்சிக்கு ஏதலரே அன்றோ அவ்வேனையலாம் கற்றிடினும். All the great scriptures, along with the commentaries of ancient sages, are but explanatory, glorious benedictions upon supreme silence. For those who descend from that silence, no matter how many scriptures they study or recite, they stray from the ever-shining self, the pure I am I. That is a supreme awareness. Moving on, lines 325 to 330. பிள்ளை புரிந்த பிழை உளதேல் அப்பிழையை தள்ளை பொறுத்தருள தக்கது போல் ஏதும் அறிந்தும் அறியாது நான் ஆற்று பிழை உண்டேல் மறந்து மதியாதே மகிழ்ந்துவத்தி தாட்கே பிழைக்கும் அதுவும் பிழை பொறுப்பும் என்ப ஒழுக்கம் நமக்கென்று இவ்வுலகம் அறிந்ததே. This poetry is beautiful, and Muruganar is asking for Bhagavan's forgiveness for not staying on the path and not steadying himself in the supreme awareness that shines as I am I. That is the gist of these 6 lines or 8 lines. பிள்ளை புரிந்த பிழை உளதே அப்பிழையை தள்ளை பொறுத்தருள தக்கது போல். So imagine a mother. The mother has a mischievous child. பிள்ளை புரிந்த பிழை உளதேல். And let's say the mischievous child does some erroneous acts. பிழை உளதேல் means erroneous acts. பிள்ளை புரிந்த means the mischievous child is doing some erroneous acts. அப்பிழையை தள்ளை பொறுத்தருள தக்கது போல். You know how the mother overlooks the mistake that is done by the child. Likewise, தக்கது போல், likewise, அறிந்தும் அறியாது நான் ஆற்று பிழை உண்டேல் மறந்து மதியாதே மகிழ்ந்துவத்தி தாட்கே. Likewise, if I have knowingly or unknowingly done any mistakes, மறந்து மதியாதே, please forget them and do not mind them. மகிழ்ந்துவத்தி தாட்கே. With joy, I want to abide in your holy feet. Tatke means in your holy feet. Mahilduvatti means with joyous exhilaration, I want to surrender and I want to be at your feet. However, பிழைக்கும் அதுவும் பிழை பொறுப்பும் என்ப. However, I cannot, due to my prior vasanas, I tend to falter and I end up committing mistakes. Despite my resolve, despite my surrender, my vasanas overtake, I end up committing mistakes. பிழை பொறுப்பும் என்ப. And knowing that I've strayed, you also endure my waywardness and forgive me. Right? So I commit myself to be at your feet. I do that as my sadhana. When my old vasanas take possession of me, I end up moving away from abiding in the self, abiding in your holy feet. And knowing that you forgive me and you endure my mistakes so that I come back to your surrender when I'm aware of it. So he says, பிழைக்கும் அதுவே பிழை பொறுப்பும் என்ப ஒழுக்கம் நமக்கென்று இவ்வுலகம் அறிந்ததே. So this, the back and forth, meaning me straying away and then you forgiving me with compassion and getting me back into your holy feet. This silent understanding, ஒழுக்கம் usually means conduct. Here it means an understanding. ஒழுக்கம் நமக்கென்று. This is between you and I, between us. இவ்வுலகம் அறிந்ததே. So the entire world knows this is our pact. Meaning, I stray, you forgive, and you bring me back. So that is well known to the world. It's not a secret. So therefore, it's very moving how Muruganar is writing here, which is, like how a mischievous child is forgiven for mischievous acts by the child's mother. Likewise, please forgive me for all the erroneous acts I've committed, knowingly or unknowingly. Furthermore, I have surrendered unto your feet wholly. I have no other option. But owing to vasanas and tendencies, I end up faltering because my ego flares up. I realize that mistake. I seek forgiveness and you forgive me and you actually look past the erroneous acts I've done with my ego. But that pact, that understanding between us is not a secret because the entire world knows that how I stray and how you forgive. So that is the grace of Bhagavan. பிள்ளை புரிந்த பிழை உளதேல் அப்பிழையை தள்ளை பொறுத்தருள தக்கது போல் ஏதும் அறிந்தும் அறியாது நான் ஆற்று பிழை உண்டேல் மறந்து மதியாதே மகிழ்ந்துவத்தி தாட்கே பிழைக்கும் அதுவும் பிழை பொறுப்பும் என்ப ஒழுக்கம் நமக்கென்று இவ்வுலகம் அறிந்ததே. Just as a mother graciously forgives the mischief for her child, I pray you forgive any errors I have committed, knowingly or unknowingly, and overlooking them entirely, grant me refuge at your feet, to which I have wholly surrendered. Mahinduvatti Tatke. When old tendencies or vasanas surface and I falter, you patiently endure my waywardness. This silent understanding between us of your compassion and my failings is no secret. Indeed, it's a well-known fact to the world. Moving on, 331 through 338. காரிருளாம் மாயை கழற்றும் கழலோனே பேரருளாம் இன்ப மழை பெய்யும் முகிலோனே தவிக்கும் முத்தாபத் தழற் கொழுந்து வீசாது அவிக்கும் மெஞ்ஞான பேர் ஆற்றின்ப வெள்ளமே உண்ணார் அமுதே உரை கடந்த பேரொளியே தன்னார் அழிசேர் தயாம்புதியாம் தாயே நலமொன்றும் இல்லா இந்நாய் காண உள்ள புலமொன்று நின்றொளிரும் பொற்பத பூமானே. See, there's sections that are written by Bhagavan, there are sections that are written by Muruganar. It's all beautifully done. And even sections written by Bhagavan are written on behalf of Muruganar. But clearly you can see this section, these lines are written by Bhagavan because you could see the choice of words and how Bhagavan wonderfully weaves the ideas that are present in Ulladu Naarpadu and other of Bhagavan's writings himself in these lines. So here, Bhagavan, although is praying to Lord Ramana as if he is Muruganar, but he's also praying to Lord Arunachala because from Bhagavan's standpoint, Arunachala is not different from Ramana. So you can actually see the idea of, you know, the supreme self, the singular self forming here, and how the verse actually takes a different turn here. Karirulam Mayai Karatrum Karalone. Karirul is utter darkness or the deepest of darkness. Mayai. So the Maya that weaves the utter darkness so that it engulfs the supreme self that shines within. Karatrum Karalone. You dispel that. Karatrum means you dispel it or you end it. You end the darkness of Maya so that the supreme self is revealed. And when such a thing happens, the holy anklets worn on your feet are victorious. So, and then he says, you are wearing the anklets of victory on your feet by dispelling the deepest of darkness woven by Maya. Karirulam Mayai Karatrum Karalone. பேர் அருளாம் இன்ப மழை பெய்யும் முகிலோனே. பேர் அருள் is, you know, extraordinary grace. It's not normal grace, it's extraordinary grace. It's blissful. It falls like rain of bliss. Inba Mare, he says. Mare is rain. Inba Mare is blissful rain. So, you know, imagine that blissful rain is bestowed by Bhagavan. That's only because of his supreme grace. Per Arulam Inba Mare Peyyum Muhilone. You are the celestial cloud that rains bliss because of your supreme grace. Perarulam inba malai peyyum muhilone. Tabikum muttabat தழ கொழுந்து வீசாது அபிக்கும் மெய்ஞான பேர் ஆற்றின்ப வெள்ளமே. Vellam is a great overflowing water. And it's a flood. Vellam is flood. Aatrinba vellame is, it's the flood that comes from the river of bliss. Aatru inba vellam. Peraatrinba vellam. It is the supreme divulge, the supreme torrential flood that comes as bliss, that quenches the fire, that washes away the fire. What is the fire? தழற் கொழுந்து வீசாது அபிக்கும் மெய்ஞான பேரின்ப ஆற்றின்ப வெள்ளமே. What is the தழற் கொழுந்து? தழற் கொழுந்து is the flaming fire. What is the flaming fire? தவிக்கும் முத்தாபம். Muttabam is 3 types of sorrows. It's called tabatrayas in Sanskrit. There are 3 types of sorrows that are described in Upanishads. And all 3 types of sorrows are completely washed away. Though they actually flame like large fire, the fire is completely quelled by this fast torrential bliss that is wisdom, மெய்ஞான பேராற்றின்ப வெள்ளமே, that comes as a flood of grace and quenches the fire. So let us see what are those 3 types of sorrows or tapatrayas. First is adibhautikam, which is sorrow that comes from other living beings or other bhutas. Second, Adi Devikam, Adidevikam is sorrow that comes from other gods, fate, or unseen forces. So this is called Adidevikam. So the Adibhautikam and Adidevikam is beyond your control. One is sorrow that comes from other living beings. Second is sorrow that comes from other things, such as fate, like an accident happens, or other unseen forces, gods, all sorts of other extraneous beings. Whereas Adibhautikam is sorrow that comes from other living beings, such as your relatives, friends, and so on and so forth. Third, Adhyatmikam. Adhyatmikam is sorrow that comes from one's mind or one's ego or one's body, such as your illness or your emotional states or your unhappiness. So all that is Adhyatmikam. So all these three types of sorrows are completely wiped away by the supreme torrential coolness that is called grace that is spread by Bhagavan. Tavikkum muktaba thar கொழுந்து வீசாது அவிக்கும் மெய்ஞான பேர் ஆற்றின்ப வெள்ளமே. And he goes on, Unnar Amude. Unnar Amude is, it is nectar. And I can't have enough of that nectar. Meaning I can never be, quelled. I can't sip enough of the nectar that you give. Unnar Amude, Murai kadanda peroliye. There is nothing that any speech can describe your supreme effulgence. Urai means speech or writing. Kadanda means transcending speech or the reach of speech. Peroliye, you are the supreme effulgence or the radiant effulgence. Tannar alise dayambudiyam taye. Dayambudiyam is you are a gracious or you are a benevolent taye, mother. So you are my supreme spiritual mother that grants whatever I ask for. What do I ask for? Tannar alise. Your coolness spreads from your infinite grace that touches my heart. And therefore it cools me down from the constant passions that I exhibit through my minds. So it says, Tannar alise dayam budiyam taye. Because he's granting that thing that quells my, my needs and creates me peace, he calls Bhagavan as Taye, my mother, my spiritual mother. நலமொன்றும் இல்லா இந்நாய் காண உள்ள புலமொன்றி நின்றொளிரும் பொற்பத பூமானே. நலமொன்றும் இல்லா இந்நாய். I have no merits. I have no virtues. Nalamundrum illa. Innai. Innai means I am lower than even a dog in nature. As previously described, here dog means doesn't mean a physical dog. It means the tendency of the mind that goes about driven by vasanas or smell. That is the analogy here. Nalamundrum illa in nai kana. For me to realize, ulla pulamundri nindrolirum. You have entered my heart and you have taken over all my faculties in your service. Pulam ondri nindru olirum. You shine within with golden effulgence. Purpada pumane. You shine with golden effulgence, revealing the splendor of your sacred feet. Purpadam is golden effulgent holy feet. Pumane. O my Lord. காரிருளாம் மாயை கழற்றும் கழலோனே, பேரருளாம் இன்ப மழை பெய்யும் முகிலோனே, தவிக்கும் முத்தாப தழ கொழுந்து வீசாது அவிக்கும் மெய்ஞான பேராற்றின்ப வெள்ளமே, உண்ணார் அமுதே உரைகடந்த பேரொளியே, தன்னார் அலிசே தயாம்புதியாம் தாயே, நலமொன்றும் இல்லா இன் நாய்க்கான உள்ள புலமொன்றி நின்றொளிரும் பொற்பத பூமானே. You wear the anklets of victory upon your holy feet. You dispel the deepest darkness of Maya. Your grace pours down like blissful rain from a celestial cloud. Like a mighty flood of grace, your cooling presence washes over those scorched by the fires of the threefold sorrows, Tapatrayas. The sweetness of your nectar cannot be sipped enough. Your radiant effulgence surpasses the reach of speech, and your infinite grace is like an endless cool ocean. You are my spiritual mother, for you have given me birth in the realm of truth. Though I am without virtue, lower than even a dog in nature, still you have entered my heart, shining with golden effulgence, revealing the splendor of your sacred feet. Moving on, lines 339 to 342. இளையாய் அழகியால் யார்க்கும் எழுத ஒண்ணா களையார் அகண்ட சிவாகார விருத்தி உணர்வின் தெளிவூர ஊத்தை அகங்கார புணர்வின் திறம் மாய்ந்த போத கிழவோய். இளையாய் அழகியாய். Ilayai is you are ever youthful. This is same as Komalam. Azhagiyai is beautiful or radiantly beautiful. Ilayai is youthful. Azhagiyai is beautiful. யார்க்கும் எழுத ஒண்ணா களையார் அகண்ட சிவாகார விருத்தி. யார்க்கும் எழுத ஒண்ணா களையார். Nobody can speak or write about your continence. Kalayar is continence or your wonderful effulgent body. Why is that? You are Akanda Sivakara Vritti. You are the supreme and undivided perfection. Akanda Sivakara Vritti, which is perfection, which is undivided and supreme in nature, which is nothing but Shivam, which is Sivakara Vritti or Akanda Shivakara Vritti. Furthermore, he says, Unarvin Teli Ura Uttai Ahangara Punarvin Thiram Mainda Boda Kiravoi. Unarvin Teli Ura, the inner awareness that shines, I am I, which is nothing but you shining within my heart. You actually you make it clear by killing the ego or by destroying the ego. Uttai ahangara punarvin tiram mainda. Ahangara punarva is the false belief that this body is the self. That is the definition of ahangaram or ego. Ahangara punarvin means the thought, the I thought that falsely clings to the false belief this body is the self. That is the definition of ego and the clinging to this body. Tiram mainda, you end that. Bodha kiravoi. Bodha kiravan means brimming with wisdom. Bodha means experiential wisdom, right? So Bodha kiravoi means you are the master of that sacred domain of that living wisdom. What is the living wisdom? Which is to be in abidance of the supreme effulgence that shines within everyone's heart as I am I, by ending the ignorant ego that believes that this body is the self. And when that ego is gone, what is available or what eternally is available is the supreme grace of the self shining within. That is what it said. Unarvin Telibura Uttai Ahangara Punarvin Tiramainda Boda Kiravoi. இளையாய் அழகியாய் யார்க்கும் எழுத ஒண்ணா களையார் அகண்ட சிவாகார விருத்தி உணர்வின் தெளி ஊர ஊத்தை அகங்கார புணர்வின் திறம் மாய்ந்த போதக் கிழவோய். You are ever youthful and radiant, a beauty beyond time. No words can capture your countenance, the very embodiment of supreme undivided perfection, Shivam. You shine within me, bestowing the light of the discernment that dissolves the ego, which falsely clings to the false belief that the body is the self. It is you alone who bestow the grace of direct living wisdom, for you are the sole master of the sacred domain. Bodha Kiravoi. Kiravoi is the owner or the supreme elder who owns something. That is our Bhagavan, who owns the domain of the experience of the self, because he is that Akanda Shivakara Vritti, as explained in the third line of this verse. Moving on, lines 343 to 350. Surubamam unmai chudaroli chelvam திரோதமா மங்க தெழித்து உடல் யான் என்னும் அகந்தையால் ஆறு உயிரை ஆட்டி அலைத்து அள்ளி முகுந்து கொள ஆசைகளை மூட்டும் முட்டுப்பாட்டால் வறுமையாய் துன்று வரும் பாழ் அவிச்சை சிறுமையற தீர்ந்தடியேன் செம்மாந்து ஒளி வளர முப்பாழ் கடந்து முழு மூல பண்டார வைப்பா அகத்தில் வயங்குருமுன் வாழ்முதலே. Beautiful. We will start from the top. சுரூபமாம் உண்மை சுடரொளி செல்வம் திரோதமா மங்கத் தெழித்து உடல் யானென்னும் அகந்தையால் ஆருயிரை ஆட்டி அலைத்து அள்ளி முகுந்து கொள ஆசைகளை மூட்டும் முட்டுப்பாட்டால். Those are the first 4 lines. சுரூபமாம் உண்மை சுடரொளி. The Atma or the self that is verily the truth is ever shining like a radiant flame within the heart. That is the Surupa or the truth of the Atma. Suruvamam Unmai Chudaroli Chelvam. That is the wealth. That is the spiritual wealth. Thirodama Manga Thiritu Udal Yan Ennum. Thirodam is hiding. We have spoken about the Maheshwara Tattvam in the prior verses, which is one of the 5 phases of Lord Shiva, which is responsible for hiding or veiling the truth, which is this, which is the Maya Tattvam. Thirodama Manga Thiritu Udal Yan Ennum. So in order to veil the supreme effulgence that shines within everyone's heart, which is verily the Atman, the ego or the Jiva is clinging on to this idea, Udal Yan Ennum. This body is the self. Manga Thezhithu. So what happens when the ego is clung on to? The supreme being is hidden. That is Thirodam. Thirodama Manga Thezhithu Udal Yan Ennum. So believing that this body is the self, the ego is born, and because of that mistaken belief, the truth is well hidden, which is always present in the heart like a radiant flame. Then what happens? Ahandayal, this ego, or virai, or virai is this very jiva, this very individual self. Aatti alaitu, it drives this jiva, in various different directions. Alli muhandu kola ஆசைகளை மூட்டும் முட்டுப்பாட்டால். In order to enjoy the passions and desires, this jiva is led astray in every direction away from abiding in the self. ஆட்டி அலைத்து அள்ளி முகந்து கொள ஆசைகளை மூட்டும் முட்டுப்பாட்டால். So what happens? வறுமையா துன்று வரும் பாழ் அவிச்சை. Varum Paul Avichai is desire that brings destruction. So what happens? Originally itself, the spiritual wealth, which is always in the heart, becomes varumaya tundru. It becomes completely driven by the passions that act as barricades or obstacles to enjoying the wealth. Therefore, the ego experiences only poverty. Varumaya tundru varum paal avichai. So, and then it destroys the happiness. It destroys the peace. So, what is requested here as a result of this act of ego, which is driven by passions, which moves the jiva away from the experiencing of the self. As a result, what it used to be spiritually wealthy has become completely bankrupt and become very poor, and is experiencing misery. Varmiya tundru varum paal avichai sirumayara தீர்ந்து அடியேன் செம்மாந்து ஒளி வளர. Please help me to end this smallness. Sirumayara. Sirumai is smallness or a narrowness. Ara, end this. Adiyen semmandu ஒளி வளர. Let me shine again like how I used to be before the ego came about. Let me enjoy the bliss of the light of the self. Semmandu ஒளி வளர. Muppal kadandu muhu moola pandaram. Muppal is the tabatrayam we previously saw in the line. The 3 different obstacles that actually cause sorrows. Kadanda muhu moola pandaram. Pandaram is a locker that holds a lot of money, typically kept in a temple or in a public place. So it is locked up and it's hidden, but there's huge wealth in the Pandaram. So Muppal Kadanda Muru Mula Pandaram. So it actually lets us overcome the threefold obstacles and the hidden health that is kept within our heart. Vaipa Ahatil, it is kept in the heart as a hidden wealth in a locker, in our heart, in our cave, in the cave of the heart. Vayangurum yen Val Mudale. Please bless me to access the treasure, the hidden treasure within my heart that will come and give me the bliss, such as the one that was experienced before the ego came about, that also washes away the three folds of sorrow, or muppal. So, Surubamam, Unmai Chudaroli Chelvam, திரோதமா மங்கத் தெழித்து உடல் யான் என்னும் அகந்தையால் ஆறுயிரை ஆட்டி அலைத்து அள்ளி முகுந்து கொள ஆசைகளை மூட்டு முட்டு பாட்டால் வறுமையா துன்று வரும் பாழ் அவிச்சைச் சிறுமையற தீர்ந்தடியேன் செம்மாந்து ஒளி வளர முப்பாழ் கடந்த முழுமூல பண்டார வைப்பா அகத்தில் வயங்குறும் என் வாழ் முதலே. The ego, born of the mistaken belief that this body is the self, veils the truth of the Atman, which ever shines in the heart like a radiant flame. Blinded thus, the jiva is tossed about, led astray by passions and desires that act as barricades. Muttu muttu patal. It's acting as barricade, blocking the quiet stream of ever-present grace. These cravings drain the soul of its spiritual wealth, leaving it impoverished in the realm of truth. Your supreme grace ends this smallness, lifting me, your devotee, beyond the threefold obstacles to realize the vast and hidden treasure that rests untouched within the heart. Mugumula Pandara Vaipal Vayanguru Min Val Mudale. Moving on, lines 351 to 354. நின் தொழும்பே மிக்க நியமமாய் கொண்டு உலகில் சென்று அழும்பு பேசாது உட்சேர்விக்கும் சீரோனே முன்போல் உலகிடை நான் மோக முராது இன்னருளால் தன்பால் எனது உணர்வை சாத்தும் தயாபரமே. நின் தொழும்பே. Nin தொழும்பே is doing your work by being subservient. Mikka niyamamai, that becomes my commandment, or that becomes my lifestyle. Niyamam is act or acting or conducting one's life. Mikka niyamamai, it becomes the perfect commandment to lead my life. What is perfect commandment to my life? Work given by you by being your servant or being your devotee. Nin தொழும்பே மிக்க நியமமாய் கொண்டு உலகில். So by doing your work as commanded by you, I lead my life with discipline. And what is that discipline? Just following what you have given me to do. Kondu ulagil. Therefore, I engage in the world. Sendru alumbu pesadu. I will not talk garbage. I will not talk idle. I will not enter into idle chatter. Sendru alumbu pesadu utchervikkum sironi. You save me by making me abide in my own heart, by commanding me to do the work that you've given me, and therefore I regulate my life based on your engagement. And therefore, I do not go and engage in idle chatter with the rest of the world. I kind of get reformed by your grace on me. That's why Bhagavan gives the word. So, for example, Muruganar first came to Bhagavan. Bhagavan said, it'll be nice if he composed like this. He could compose like Mickkavachagar. Until the very end, Muruganar kept writing hundreds and thousands, if not tens of thousands of verses. That act got him completely engaged in his supreme awareness within himself. And as he abides, verses flowed forth. Sometimes he recorded, sometimes he did not. But that act avoided him from engaging with the world in any idle chatter or useless things, because that will actually pull him away from his inner awareness. So by doing Bhagavan's work, we abide in the inner awareness. And for everyone, the engagement is different. So that is what it says. Nin tozhumbe மிக்க நியமமா கொண்டு உலகில் சென்று அழும்பு பேசாது உட்சேர்விக்கும் சீரோனே. உட்சேர்விக்கும் means you ensure I end up abiding in the heart. Sirone is one who is perfect or one who is the purest. முன்போல் உலகிடை நான் மோக முராது அருளால் தன்பால் எனது உணர்வை சார்த்தும் தயாபரணே. So even after this, you ensure I do not re-engage with the world like I used to do previously. So because of your grace, Innarulal is because of your benevolent grace. முன்போல் உலகடை நான் மோகமிராது. I do not want to get engaged with the world with my former passions. முன்போல், like previously, like formerly. உலகடை நான் மோகமுராது. I do not get entangled in the world with passions that defined me previously. இன்னருளால், with your benevolent grace. தன்பால் எனது உணர்வை சார்த்தும். You always draw me into your inner awareness that shines within me, or you shining as my inner awareness. Tanbal enadu unarvai. Enadu unarvai is my supreme awareness or my inner awareness. Sarthum, you make me abide. Dayabarani. Paran is the supreme being. Dayabaran is gracious supreme being. நின் தொழும்பே மிக்க நியமமாய் கொண்டு உலகில் சென்று அழும்பு பேசாது உட்சேர்விக்கும் சீரோனே. முன்போல் உலகிடை நான் மோக முராது இன்னருளால் தன்பால் எனது உணர்வை சார்த்தும் தயாபரணே. Without letting me stray into worldly distractions and idle chatter, you, the embodiment of supreme perfection, command me to carry out your work in humble service to your presence. Abiding in the heart as pure awareness, I am I. Through your benevolent grace, I am drawn inward, absorbed in your presence, no longer tossed about by former passions or entangled in the world as I once was. Moving on, lines 355 to 358. மூர்த்தி தலம் தீர்த்தமெனும் மூன்றுமாய் தான் முயங்கி ஆர்த்தியோடும் அன்பரால் ஆடப் பெறுவோனே. அவ்வாறு அவற்றையும் உவந்து ஆடினர்கோர் சத்குருவாய் செவ்வே ஒரு வார்த்தை திருவாய் மலர்வோனே. How beautiful. Murti, Talam, Tirtham. Murti is the idol or the form of God. Talam is the temple, the holy temple that houses such an idol. Tirtham is a sacred water, usually the temple water or the river or ocean nearby, whatever the form of water that is next to the temple, which is usually used by devotees to take a holy dip on, to wash away their sins. So, whether it is the idol or the temple that houses the idol or the holy waters that actually sanctifies devotees by taking a dip or washing away their sins. Moondrumai, all three of them. Taan muyangi artiyodum anbaral aada peruvoni. You alone manifest in all three of these things. So whether you go to worship an idol, whether you go and worship in a temple, or whether you take a holy dip in a sacred water, this is all the self, this is all Bhagavan. There is no other different things. Taan muyangi artiyodum anbaral aadapuravane. When your devotees go into these places, they enjoy the bliss that comes from the idol or the temple or the holy water. They only enjoy your experience because there is only one self. There can't be more than one. Artiyodum anbaral aadapuravane. Your devotees enjoy your holy presence, which is always available from within their hearts, but yet, when they go to these places, they enjoy the devotion that's only within their hearts, that is shining as your holy feet within them. That's what it said. அவ்வாறு அவற்றை உணர்ந்து உவந்து ஆடினர்கோர் சத்குருவாய் செவ்வே ஓர் வார்த்தை திருவாய் மலர்வோனே. When your devotees realize it is you, when they realize the profound truth that you alone pervade all these three forms, and you alone is the one that is being experienced. When they realize and they become your devotee, you become their Sadguru. Adinako Sadguruvai. you become their Sadguru. And Sevve Oru Vartai Tiruvai Malarvoni, you utter a single word from your beautiful lips, leading them inward to the self. What is that one word? Nanyar, or who am I? The Nanar is a single word that Bhagavan says that directs devotees who have surrendered unto him into their self. And it's only for those who realize that it's Bhagavan who is in all three forms. There is no reason to go to that temple and this sacred water and that idol, because it's all Bhagavan. And when they realize and they surrender, Bhagavan then tells them, who am I? Which is a supreme wisdom, a jnana marga, so that they actually have the direct path. Until the direct path is given to them, they go around and get the devotion. So that is the sadhana that is being explained. So Moorthy Thalam Teerthamenum Mundrumai Than Muyangi Artiyodum Anbaral Ada Peruvone Avaru Avatra Yuvanda Adinarko Sadguruvai Cheve Uruvartai Tiruvai Malarvoni. You alone manifest in all three sacred forms for the joy of your devotees. As a divine image they worship, the holy temple that houses it, and the sacred waters in which they bathe to wash away their sins. To those blessed devotees who recognize profound truth that you pervade all three forms, you speak but a single word, a word of grace and guidance, flowing beautifully from your lips, leading them inward to the self. And how does it happen? By him being Sadguru, by being the supreme Guru that guides them into the path of the self. With that, we wrap today. I'll quickly review the verse that we saw today. It's quite voluminous. Ampun Mameru Adainda Parai Kakayum Achambun Mayama Tirambola Sichuruba Sannidhivai Ainda Adi Samania Uirum Unnadamam Achuruba Mutroliru Manbale Unmayan Nan Oradu Udayai Unmenyana Van Mayamana Monam Varangudi மெய்யுள் உரைக்க வாய்மொழியே போல் தோன்றி மாயா மனமூல தாய்மொழியாம் ஓர்மொழியே தக்க மொழியாகப் பரமார்த்தம் சொல்வார் பரம்பரைக்கே ஆதி குருமூர்த்த மாக குலாமோன கோமளமே வித்தகத் தொன்னூல் அனைத்தும் விஞ்சை சேர் நின்மோன புத்தகத்துக்கு ஆன்றோர் புகன்ற உரை பாயிரமே ஆதலின் அம்மோனம் அவிழ்களார் மெய்யுணர்ச்சிக்கு ஏதலரை அன்றே அவ்வேனையலாம் கற்றிடினும் பிள்ளை புரிந்த பிழை உளதேல் அப்பிழையை தள்ளை பொறுத்தருள தக்கது போல் ஏதும் அறிந்தும் அறியாது நானாற்று பிழை உண்டேல் மறந்து மதியாதே மகிழ்ந்துவத்தி தாட்கே பிழைக்கும் அதுவும் பிழை பொறுப்பும் என்ப ஒழுக்கம் நமக்கென்று இவ்வுலகம் அறிந்ததே காரிருளாம் மாயை கழற்றும் கழலோனே பேருளாம் இன்பமழை பெய்யும் முகிலோனே தவிக்கும் முத்தாப தழக்கொழுந்து வீசாது அவிக்கும் மெய்ஞான பேராற்றின்ப வெள்ளமே உண்ணார் அமுதே உரைகடந்த பேரொளியே தன்னார் அழிசேர் தயாம்புதியான் தாயே நலமொன்று மெல்லா இந்நாய் காண உள்ள புலமொன்றி நின்றொளிரும் பொற்பத பூமானே இளையாய் அழகியாய் யார்க்கும் எழுத ஒண்ணா களையார் அகண்ட சிவாகார விருத்தி உணர்வின் தெளிவூர ஊத்தை அகங்கார புணர்வின் திறம் வாய்ந்த போத கிழவோய் சொரூபமாம் உண்மைச் சுடரொழிச் செல்வம் திரோதமா மங்கத் தெழித்து உடல் யானென்னும் அகந்தையால் ஆருயிரை ஆட்டி அழைத்து அள்ளி முகந்து கொள ஆசைகளை மூட்டும் முட்டுப்பாட்டால் வறுமையா துன்று வரும் பால் அவிச்சைச் சிறுமையற தீர்ந்தடியேன் செம்மாந்து ஒளிவளர முப்பால் கடந்த முழுமூலப் பண்டார வைப்பா அகத்தில் வயங்குறும் என் வாழ் முதலே நின் தொழும்பே மிக்க நியமமா கொண்டு உலகில் சென்று அழும்பு பேசாது உட்சேவிக்கும் சீரோனே முன்போல் உலகிடை நான் மோகமுறாது இன்னருளால் தன்பால் எனதுணர்வை சார்த்தும் தயாபரணே மூர்த்தி தலம் தீர்த்தமெனும் மூன்றுமாய் தான் முயங்கி ஆர்த்தியோடும் அன்பரால் ஆடப் பெறுவோனே அவ்வாறு அவற்றையுவந்து ஆடினர்க்கோ சத்குருவாய் செவ்வே ஓர் வார்த்தை திருவாய் மலர்வோனே. With that, we'll wrap up. I'm happy to answer if you have any questions.
I just have a question. That Muttabam, it says Adi Baudigam. Usually, Adi means it's usually Adi Divaram means it's a higher Divaram. That is the way we have always used. So this is the first time I'm seeing it's being used in a different way. See, like Adi Baudigam, Adi Daivigam. So that generally we interpret as an acute physics or acute Daivigam, like that, the Adi. But this here it's used in a different way, right?
Yeah. So these Tabatrayams are explained beautifully. in Upanishadic texts.
Okay.
And in Saiva Siddhanta also, these three forms of sorrows are explained. And obviously, there are a lot of leelas of Shiva are woven around these three types of sorrows in many
Okay.
the Shiva agamas as well.
So it's not the literal meaning that we generally used in Adi, that word, right? Aditi Viram or Adi, that way. And another one is that Pandaram. Usually the Pandaram in the temples are the people who do the garland and everything. This is the first time I'm seeing that word Pandaram used as a treasure chest or something like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. So
Mm.
Pandaram in the ancient language used to be the person who's in charge of the treasure chest at a temple.
Ah.
And that person used to use garlands, and over a period of time, the Pandaram remained without the locker of money.
Because as far as I know, Pandaram, that caste even is all garland making people for the temple. And the last one is the Unnatam, that word, I've never seen it with the Tannagaram. Usually I've seen it with the Chinna and Nana. So that was unique. The very first thing, very first line, wherever you, I think the... No. Unnadama. The very first, I think the one before that. Even before that. Yeah, see, Sannidhiva Yenda Adi Samanya Virum Unnadama. That Unnadam, I have never seen that with the Tannagaram. This is the first time I'm ever seeing. Do they use it like that?
It's a very poetic language.
Oh, okay.
So it rhymes with Sannidhi boy. It's Unnadamam is like a...
Tannagaram.
Yeah.
Okay, it's allowed, I guess. I mean, I am not very good in poetry or anything, but it's unique. I've never seen that like that. So
it's for the grammatical structure of the Venba that's used. But Tu Sulina, if that's what you mean. That's
I think it's just for the rhyming. Sannidhi, Sandhi, so Unnadam is a Tannagaram just to...
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Namaskar, thank you.